What's happening, fishing friends? Welcome to another episode. If you like gear reviews, you're going to like this one because I happen to have the brand new Shimano Curado M Baitcaster. Now, as always with my gear reviews, I'm going to go through some of the specifications and technology in this. I'll compare it to some of the older Curados in the lineup, and I'll give you my first impressions on this after taking it out and using it on the water for the day. So enough yapping, let's get into the features of this. Now, I'll put the numbers up on the screen for this, things like the different gear ratios it comes in, left and right-handed, and right now I'll leave my link down below for Tackle Warehouse. You can get this on sale. The weird thing about Shimano is when you go there, click the link, it'll take you right to this new Curado M. When you put it in your cart, it won't show the discount, but when you actually go to checkout, like when I go through PayPal, it does give you that discount. So for just the reel, it ends up being $181.89. 7.4 ounce reel. It is a little bit bigger. It's the 200 size. I believe it holds 155 yards of 10-pound mono, which is more than enough. And it's a great reel if you use, like heavier line, if you're going to flip and pitch or, frogging. With that larger spool, with that larger capacity, you can put more line on there as opposed to like a real small finesse spooled, baitcaster. If you put braid on there, oftentimes you're casting clear out to the end of that if you have 50, 65 on. So it's got the same familiar grips, just like the K and some of the other previous version. It does have a good grip in hand, and it's molded so your thumb fits kind of this way. Your fingers make kind of like an X when you grab it. It is comfortable just to crank and reel it out there. It is the Hagane body, so it is an aluminum frame. And you can see on the bottom, made in Malaysia there, the 200M. And they stopped making these, the Curado series, in Japan after the E series, which is why so many people like the pretty green one back there. Now, as with a lot of their reels, they do have that micro module gearing, which in my opinion is what makes the Shimano reels some of the fit and finish the best of the best. When it comes to smoothness, Shimano has that completely on lockdown. Now, they've also got, on the spool there, you see that little black rubber ring? And same thing on this side, see that black rubber ring? This is what they call their silent tunes. So these rubber rings, these rubber O-rings, sit against the bearing. So as this is spinning, it's not vibrating. It's helping reduce that vibration and make the spool spin and turn a lot easier. So you're supposed to get more casting distance. Also with this one, you're getting the MGL3 spool. A good upgrade over the last Curado, did not have that. And this one I noticed, and a couple other people said, yeah, it's kind of a bear to, get it dialed in. And I think it's because of that. That spool that's meant to handle lighter baits or the same size baits and just be able to cast it out there with less power, with less oomph that you have to put into it and get the same distance. Does still have the normal SVS brakes, just the 4 brake pads there. They're on when they move like this, when your spool is spinning. That's what's pushing against this round brass race here, and that's what's slowing your lure down, just putting friction up against this. Now, speaking of that brass race, that's what this adjuster is for here. So a lot of people say, oh, this is the magnetic brakes. No, this is centrifugal brakes only, and what this does is it fine-tunes and moves this brass race closer or farther away from these little brake shoes as they're spinning around and turning, giving you more or less braking power. So you can see here with this on 6, the numbers are kind of small. That is one thing I wish they would change that. You can just barely see that brass race sticking out there, right? Turn this all the way down to 0 like that, or 1. Look at that, it's gone. It takes that brass race and pushes it back farther in there, so you're getting less brake power. So I think I ended up setting it on 5 when I was out casting with it. I was just kind of messing around, switching between 2 or 3 of these on, and usually you want to have ones that are opposite of each other. I don't know how big of a difference it makes, but you can see when you click this into position like that, that's when they're off. So again, moving like that, they're on. It's got just the simple open and close lever there, close that. Now, if you have trouble getting this back on and closing this, this is for any reel when you're putting the non-handle side plate, the one that comes off, back on, and you're just trying to get it, it won't go all the way in. You might have your spool tension too tight, so you might have to loosen that up a little bit. And I noticed setting this up, and kind of similar with some of the other Shimano reels, I do have to have my spool tension set just a little bit tighter than I normally would. There's no side-to-side play movement here, but you can still see how free spinning that spool is. They did also upgrade that spool tension knob. There's no audible click to it, but it's a nice big knob with, like the serrations there. You get a feel of it. I like it better than this one, the old K. This is the previous model. With this one, it felt, kind of small. I don't know. It wasn't bad. And to me, it doesn't matter if these click or not. There's no audible click to it. As long as it's tight, and you can see here, as you move this, it's not like you're going to accidentally bump this. You're not going to accidentally bump that and move it. It's tight enough where it stays in place, and that's what matters to me. Drag, the drag does click. I had this cranked down. I was fishing Texas rig and a jig with it, but your drag does click. Overall, very similar to the Curado K. Like I said, MGL spool. It's got some of the silent tune and stuff with it. And I did notice, but this is a slightly larger model, and I can show you here. So when I put this on a rod and grip it with the Curado M, my finger just kind of comes to right here. You can tell it's a little bit taller side plate compared to the K. So my thumb kind of fits up here, my finger goes right to about there, and that's how I would comfortably hold this and fish it. Now, compare that to the K, you can see my finger comes over here, my thumb goes all the way off to the front of this. So definitely a little bit different feel in hand. It's not anything too crazy. Both of them are nice and comfortable, but remember, these are a 200 size reel. So if you're looking for like a real tiny low profile reel, this might not be your deal. You know, this is for needing a little bit more line, a little bit larger size to it, Texas rig flipping. And even though this doesn't have an aluminum handle side plate, I think they call it their CI 4 Plus or whatever, it's supposed to be a stronger graphite. I've not had an issue with any of the Curados breaking. I know that's one thing I really like with the Daiwas is aluminum frame. A lot of them, like the Tatula 150, will have the aluminum handle side plate. Man, they are absolute tanks. So you can see they're just a slightly larger frame. Again, nothing too crazy, but you can feel in hand. It does have just a little bit different kind of feel to it. And then how does it compare to something like the 150 MGL? Well, you can see here, it's definitely a size thing. You can see the larger 200 size here compared to the 150. Also a very nice reel. I've liked this one a lot. Still get all the smoothness and everything out of it, but just a little bit smaller profile. So if you have smaller hands, you like something you can get a little bit better grip on, this might be the way to go. But even the 70, again, a smaller reel. I don't like the handles on the 70 as well. They've got those little smaller handle deals there on this Curado. So different versions of the Curado, you get smaller. You know, this is for me like smaller, lighter baits that I'm going to be working all day, a jerk bait, a topwater, you know, something like that where I want just a really good small frame. Or if you just have smaller hands and you like this kind of feel, the brakes are set up just a little bit different, so you know, just a little bit kind of different feel in hand, but each one kind of does a little bit different thing. For an all-around, man, the 150 is hard to beat. Just all-around casting, you know, not too big, throwing it around. It's a great little reel. I need to do a video on this. I didn't even get one out on this one, but maybe we'll do like a whole talk and compare some of these things I like, things that I don't like. But with the Curado M, like I said, a little bit larger size to it if you need larger line capacity, but still incorporating that MGL3 spool into it. And again, going back to setting this up, I did have a couple backlashes on my first two tries. I'm like, ooh, man, yeah, this is definitely a free feeling. Get it out there and it just wants to keep going. So spool or putting that spool tension just a little bit higher, starting with your brakes a little bit higher, and I was throwing just a 3/8 ounce jig, and man, it was whipping it out there, no problem. Okay, so after using it a full day on the water, what are some of the pros and cons of this? For me, a pro was how solid and refined Shimano feels. I mean, they're top of the heap when it comes to, I mean, this thing is just buttery smooth. I remember the first time I picked up the Curado K when the Gander was going out of business, sale Gander Mountain. I picked one up and I was like, my goodness, for, you know, a sub $200 reel, this thing is like amazing. And at that time I hadn't played with any of the, you know, the higher end, like the Metaniums or the Antares. Finally I've got my hands on those to try them out, the Bantam, and it's crazy how smooth they are. Shimano really has that, to me, in lockdown. You know, with the micro module gearing, you can twist these, you can even put pressure to it, and you're not getting any clicks or like weird sounds. Same thing with this one. Sometimes you'll put pressure down on that spool and you'll get like, or you have like some of the cheaper reels, you'll catch one big fish, one big hook set, and the reel's going. Also, another big pro to it was the addition of that MGL3 spool. Like I said, a little bit different to get dialed in, but once you get it in, man, flipping and jigging stuff out there, it just felt effortless. So people always ask, do I need a DC reel? I mean, if you're just starting out, a DC can help eliminate that, but they're not 100% backlash proof. So if you're even, you know, decently proficient with the reel, I think you can skip the DC and go to something like this. I mean, you know, the DC and wind and skipping, there are things that it's really good for. But if you're just casting around, you know, a 1/2 ounce jig or 3/8 ounce Texas rig or something like that, you don't need anything that fancy. Go with something like this. Save the money as opposed to like what? I don't know what the Curado DC is, 250, something like that, 270. Go with this one for a sub $200 reel, like I said, on sale now over at Tackle Warehouse. And it's just an excellent reel. It's going to last you a long time. Some of these, you know, back here, I've got the old green Bantam. Even though I redid this one, put new bearings in it, it still casts like excellent. Same thing with this one, the Curado D, man. Still a smooth little reel. My favorite, the old Curado E. A lot of people love these. You know, they last, you know, a long time as long as you're taking care of them, you're maintaining them. You don't let them get bone dry. You service them for the year. They're going to last, you know. Things that I didn't love about it, can you guess? Yeah, it's the brakes. You know, the Shimano brakes work, and when you look at a lot of the higher end reels, they're going to have the centrifugal brakes, right? As opposed to magnetic brakes that are always on. Centrifugal brakes, once they don't have enough, you know, inertia to really pull that out, they're not even touching here, you know, barely touching, as opposed to magnetic brakes that once you cast, they're always on. It's always creating a magnetic field as that spool is turning. So you can usually get better casting distance off this, but the one thing that I do say for people is I do think the straight centrifugal brakes are a little bit harder to get dialed in. You know, if you've got wind, stuff like that, casting into it again, it's going to get to a point where it just stops. So that's where I've been on most of my Shimanos, putting the spool tension a little bit tighter than you normally would do, like on a magnetic brake reel, and it seems to help with that a lot. But I think a straight magnetic brake reel or Daiwa, in my opinion, has the best brakes with the MagForce brakes, the cone, kind of a magnetic brake that moves with centrifugal force. But overall, I think Daiwa has the best brakes on the market. However, these are awesome. Once you get it dialed in, it's great. I think there are just kind of a few shortcomings with the straight centrifugal brakes. But my opinion, I guarantee there's going to be 75 people say, I got a Curado, never backlash with it once. That's fine. A lot of it just comes down to personal preference. Now, kind of a pro/con that's, well, again, going to come down to a preference is I like a little bit larger, meatier reel like this if I'm, you know, flipping, pitching a Texas rig, something like that where I feel like it's just going to be strong, especially like for frogging. I mean, you could use this for all those with that larger spool, you know, and capacity. It works great for that. And I personally like that, but I think that could certainly be a con. I was talking to a couple of subscribed fishing friends, and they were saying, well, should I get that 70? I really like that one compared to the 200. I saw you pictures of that one just come out. For a lot of people, man, it comes down to that frame size. If you have smaller hands, or if it, you know, your hands just cramp up with a larger reel like this, where you can really get your hands down on one, you know, really tight, compact. A lot of people prefer that. So that's when I would look at something like this. Again, that frame size could kind of be a pro or a con, depending on what you like. Some people like a little bit larger frame, some people like the smaller one, but just something to keep in mind. All right, so after using it for the day, final thoughts on the reels. I definitely think it's a winner. I mean, there's a reason why so many people say, you know, Shimano's at the top of the heap when it comes to bait casting reels. I like a lot of different brands. I use a lot of different stuff, but the thing is, like I said, their fit, finish, refinement really is up at the top of the pyramid for what they're doing in the baitcaster game. Is it a night and day difference over the Curado K? Like if you have this one, do you need to run out and buy this? No, I definitely don't think so. There are some small things that they've done to improve on the Curado version. Some of that silent tune, the MGL spool, just, you know, little things like that that help it just feel a little bit more refined. But if you have some of these, the Curado K is still a great reel, and look for sales on this. There are a number of places that had these for like 150 or 130, something like that, as this one's getting phased out and they're going to just the M model. So yeah, definitely, I would not hesitate recommending this to anybody. If you're looking for a new reel, just a do-it-all reel where you can cast, flip and pitch, any of that type of stuff on here. This is not like a specialty niche, you know, reel of like a real tiny, low line capacity for skipping or like BFS stuff. And it's not too big. It's not a, you know, a 300 size meant for crazy huge baits and stuff. It's just one of those great all-around reels. Same as the 150. You know, if you want a little bit smaller feel in hand, the 150 might be your deal. But overall, I like it a lot. So comment below and let me know, what do you think of the new Curado M? Have you picked one up? Are you going to be picking one up? Like I said, I did leave my tackle warehouse link below. You can get those on sale until the 20th. So you've got a couple days until that fall sale ends. But let me know. Let me know, what do you think of the Curados overall? Do you want me to do some sort of like old video talking about all the different Curados, looking at these, maybe even, you know, out casting them, doing something on the water with it? Comment below and let me know. I definitely want to do some more reel reviews and stuff like this. Now, today's subscribed fishing friend is Ben Wilkie. Ben, thanks for commenting on my recent videos talking about some of the frog stuff. I was throwing the KR versus the river to sea, casting distance and stuff like that. It's always fun to kind of mess with that stuff and see how big of a difference does it make, you know, when you've got two similar baits. But we'll do more stuff like that. Again, comment below and let me know what type of stuff you want to see, if there's another reel you want me to review. Love y'all. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.